everybody to the it's not May, it's October 23rd council work session. And the first item of business is committee reports, items of interest. And I'm wondering if anybody has an item of interest they want to share. I have a couple, but okay, Emily, take it away. Anybody else? Jennifer?
I'm happy to report after my concern at the last Monday meeting that the flying people are indeed at the airport.
Oh, how great.
They are not displayed yet, but they have made the move to the airport location. So this is good. Monroe Park is not so good. Last night, somebody just tore up the turf with a truck or something. I have pictures if you'd like to see, but some great big gashes, which the park didn't need with all their other troubles. But anyway, that's what's happening in my neighborhood. The Human Rights Commission that I'm on and is giving our work plan today met, and great big thank you for the DACA funds. That was really important, and they're very grateful for that support and the speed with which we did it. Starting to work on projects for the rest of the year, as you will hear. And just shout out to the county negotiations. I hope both sides find a quick and happy medium. And that's it.
Right, thank you. Jennifer?
Okay, so I wanted to do an update on the Metropolitan Wastewater Management Commission. We've been looking at the system development charges and how we might use those to help increase the number of small homes available for people. So far we've, the commission has taken one step, which is to move houses which are 800 square feet or less from a single family rate for SDCs to the multifamily rate, which makes a reduction of about 14% on those charges, which should help. But in November, we're also going to start looking at options for waivers or incentives, or possibly even creating new categories for homes that are even smaller than 800 square feet. And there's some legal issues that might prevent some of those, but we're going to be looking at that and just how wastewater, which is not something you would really think could help homelessness, but how we can help in this category. So,
Right. Anybody else with Betty?
Thank you. El Rapa still hasn't been.
Mayor, can I get in the queue? Oh,
You
sorry.
may. Yes, you may.
Lane Regional Air Protection Agency, we should remember to say the whole thing, I forget sometimes, has still not made a decision about burning within the urban growth boundary. And I don't know whether the city has any authority over that or not. I would like to know. The county, Jay Bosevich seems to think it's a county matter. It is county land outside the urban growth boundary, but they're interested in knowing what the city thinks about it. There are people who are just outside the urban growth boundary, not in the city limits, who want to burn branches and so forth. And I don't know if we have any power over that. I see the attorney saying we don't have, so.
We have code provisions that prohibit outdoor burning that obviously and it's our city code, so they apply just within our city limits.
But we can't do anything about within the urban growth boundary.
No, that's the county. They can adopt regulations. We could, if they adopted regulations, we could enter into some IGA if they wanted potentially some of our enforcement. They wouldn't be able to be cited into muni court. But when it comes to code provision and enforceability, city code stops at city limits.
But we couldn't say it's not permitted.
Correct.
Okay, well, that's good to know. I don't know if it's good or not, but it's good to know. And I'm wondering about future agenda items. When are we going to get back to inclusionary zoning? And I see it's listed as on the same line as construction excise tax. Does that mean they're going to be at the same time?
We're working on getting a lot of those items scheduled, and I don't know for sure that they'll be scheduled at the same time, but I can find out and get back to you.
Okay. I would like to know in the nuisance code, that's been waiting forever.
Yeah, in fact, we just talked about that this morning, so we'll work on getting that scheduled too and talk with staff.
Well, sometime soon we'll know when those things are scheduled, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, that's all.
Okay, Claire?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of items. I want to let folks know that I spoke on a panel at the City Club this past Friday on the road bond measure as part of my role on the council committee supporting that measure. And Brittany Quick Warner from the chamber was there, as was a member of the community, Otis. I apologize, I can't remember his last name, and he spoke in opposition. So I think we had a good representation of different views, and and that will be broadcast tonight on KLCC at 6:30 for folks who want to leave our city council meeting and go listen to that. And then after that, I joined the Lane County workers on the picket line for about an hour on Friday as a show of support, and hoping for a quick resolution of that strike so folks can go back to work and doing the good work they do for the county.
Right. Thank you. Mike, you're up.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say that I had the opportunity this last week to attend the Workforce Partnership Executive Board meeting, and the discussion predominantly there was around budget items and what I would call, I suppose, housekeeping for them adjusting spending provisions for this next year. We then had the opportunity to meet jointly with the Poverty and Homelessness Board, and that was a good discussion, and the presentation of the strategic plan was interesting. I believe the mayor can probably speak more intelligently to that than I can, as she's been a part of that group, and they had and did most of the work there. I will say it was an interesting discussion, and when asked, I did comment on the fact that our decision as a council to restrict the land supply intentionally has had, and I believe will continue to have, a negative effect on increase in home prices and a lack of home availability, certainly new construction. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Chris?
I just wanted to report, in light of what Betty was saying, the Housing Policy Board is working diligently on both inclusionary zoning and on the CET question. Actually has task forces which are working to compile information and knowledge which would be brought to a work session. I think their timeline to have their work pulled together is probably not until November or December. So I would guess that there will be a work session scheduled either at the end of the year or after the first of the year in order to be able to include this information. They're doing a lot of homework. There's a lot of knowledge, and I think it would be very helpful for us to have it. So I think that's just a kind of a rough timeline for when we might see a work session on those two topics.
Right, great. Thank you for that. Alan, do you have anything you want to bring up for items? So I'll just add my voice to this, a couple of things. I was at the same meeting that Mike attended, that was a joint meeting between the Lane Workforce Partnership and the Poverty and Homelessness Board, and we talked about the intersection between employment and wages and housing affordability. And so this was sort of the first meeting. I actually am hopeful that we'll have a smaller subgroup that will keep moving forward and kind of crunching where we each have some room to work together and maybe look at those issues together. So it was a very interesting meeting. I hope the first of a series of meetings. And right after that was either the third in a series or the first in a series of a meeting about the permanent shelter for people who are homeless. And so this was a meeting of probably 25 folks, mostly providers, mostly folks that are decision makers and in a position to help move forward on a feasibility study. And we had a facilitated conversation about what's needed in that feasibility study. What information do we need to get about revenue streams, about partners, about the population that we're serving, about possible structures. So that was an important step. It now is going to staff, city staff and county staff working together to start sort of coalescing that into a proposal around that feasibility study. So that's very exciting and very very optimistic. I feel optimistic about that. And then I just want to comment again. We are meeting here out of respect for Lane County employees and the county on strike, and hope, again, I join my voice, hoping that's resolved quickly, because a lot of people are suffering being out of work, and we hope that will end soon. So I think with that, we are probably ready for our first order of business, and I will turn it over to our Assistant City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Christy Hammond, I'm sitting in tonight for John Reese. The first item that we have is the Human Rights Commission work plan update.
Good evening, Mayor Venice and City Councilors. Thank you for taking the time to hear from the Human Rights Commission this evening. My name is Katie Babbitt, and I am the Human Rights and Equity Analyst for the City of Eugene. I've been in this role with the city since January. I've had the great opportunity to work with the Human Rights Commission in building their work plan for this fiscal year. Tonight we're here to share with you the work plan report from fiscal year 2017 and the work plan for 2018. Chair Edward McGlone and Vice Chair Joel Aboa will walk you through the content of the two documents. You have the AIS as well as attachment A and B. Following a short overview from them, we look forward to answering your questions and discussing how the HRC can most effectively support the City Council in achieving your stated goals for the coming year. As you know, boards and commissions of the City of Eugene play a critical role in contributing to our vibrant community. I want to take a minute to thank the members of the Human Rights Commission. These volunteer commissioners put in so many hours of hard work last year and took their time to be very thoughtful in building a work plan for 2018 that will address the concerns of the community. This year, the HRC hopes to continue to identify ways to be a resource for City Council. The City Council and the HRC have goals that align with one another, and this synergy can certainly offer opportunities for shared strategies and collaboration. In the coming year, the HRC plans to implement this work plan in order to advance our city towards human rights together. At this time, I will turn it over to HRC Chair Edward McGlone, who's joining us on the phone, and Vice Chair Joel Aboa to provide an overview of both of the documents.
Edward, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, hey Joel, thanks. Sorry if this is a little bit of an organized charade here as I'm calling in, so I'm not here to be as efficient as I could be. We're going to have Julie Boa, our vice chair. This is Edward, by the way. We'll have Julie Boa go ahead and start and review the work plan that we've just completed.
Thanks, Edward. Thank you, Mayor and City Council, for having us tonight. My name is Julie Boa. I serve as vice chair of the Human Rights Commission. I'm just going to go over a brief overview of 2017's work plan and some of the things that we've accomplished. In 2017, we were able to do a lot of things. I want to point out, first of all, that at the beginning of last year, almost half of the Human Rights Commission were new commissioners. And so it was really a trying time for us in the sense that there were a lot of us who were new to this work. This year, there is not a single member. I think there's only one member who's been on the commission more than 2 years. So we're also fairly new this year, but we were able to do quite a bit. In the community, the HRC was oftentimes asked to provide community supports in the way of funds and endorsement. We were able to do so for over 15 community events. There's a list of them in your first attachment. We've also we'll have several key partnerships on other boards and commissions. There are 8 total, and they go anywhere from the Equity and Human Rights Boards to homelessness, to boards, commissions, and recruitment, as well as places like the Police Commission. I'm also really proud to report that in 2017, we were able to do some partnerships with the Sustainability Commission. I became aware that we had not worked so closely together in the past, and it was my goal and other commissioners' goals to change that. And so we were able to really come together and coalesce around the Clear Lake Overlay Zone planning. I personally attended some of those meetings at the Planning Commission, and we had some sustainability commissioners come to the HRC meetings as well and gives us updates. So we were able to sort of go back and forth, not only with both of our commissions, but with Councillor Pryor and Councillor Semple to come together and endorse something really, really strong to bring to you. And I also want to point out that this partnership between the Human Rights Commission and the State Sustainability Commission is important, especially since the Sustainability Commission's focus is on the triple bottom line. And one of those lines is really critical to the success of the Human Rights Commission's work. We also had continued to do our MLK Community Leadership Award. I went to one 2 years ago and it was packed. I went to the one last year and there was a lot of overflow. I was really happy to be able to see us bring together different community members and all of the town together. It's not often that we have the mayor and the president of the University of Oregon in the same room, as well as our Congressman Peter DeFazio. So I was really happy to be able to see sort of all of us come together and celebrate such a courageous man, and I was proud that all of our commissioners could attend that day. So I'm hoping that this year we'll have an even bigger crowd, and we might have to think about getting a bigger venue. And finally, I also want to bring attention to the fact that the Human Rights Commission has wanted to bring you more policy recommendations. One of the big things that we were able to do this year is the Marginalized Voices in Eugene report that former Commissioner Ken Newbeck and current Commissioner Bonnie Souza worked really hard to put together. They brought several recommendations to City Council, and we're really pushing it out in the community and doing focus groups. And then finally, as some of you mentioned, we were able to provide Daquistas some funds, and it's unprecedented. So I hope that in 2018, the Human Rights Commission can continue to coalesce with other commissions to make Eugene a human rights city, and also with yourselves to elevate your work and make Eugene a better place to live. Thank you.
Thank you. And are we now, Edward, are you chiming in at this point?
Yes, I am. I wanted to make sure that Joel was done before I jumped in, so thank you, Mayor. Again, Mayor and Councilors, thank you. Edward McLone, Chair of the Human Rights Commission. Appreciate the opportunity to join you telephonically tonight and share with you our work plan by 2018, which you'll find attached with the agenda item summary. Before I dive into it, I just wanted to take a moment to echo Councilor Semple's comments and thank you all for your lightning fast response to our request for assistance for DACA recipients. I understand that it was a very short notice request and that Council acted on it within the week that you received it, which is really a remarkable feat of speed for any governing body. And so we really do appreciate it. We understand from the work session held subsequent to that that we can always work more with Council to increase our communication and help make sure that things move more quickly through. And my commitment to all of you is that we'll do our best to do that and work with you as councilors and as the mayor to continue to keep those open lines of dialogue. But we do really appreciate that we've heard from our community how significant that action was to provide those scholarships for DACA recipients. So with that, I want to turn your attention to our 2018 work plan. You'll notice that we've broken it down into a set of 3 overarching goals with 6 specific objectives and a number of tasks underneath. What I'll do is I'm just going to hit the high points. I believe that you are all good readers, and so you don't need me to read it all to you. So on the 3 goals, we want to take a leadership role in fostering a human rights city, effectively is what the first goal is. The second goal is really to maintain good quality relationships both in our community and with the council. And then finally, to really look actions and policy matters that can be taken up that help support the goal of Eugene being a human rights city, which we've adopted as a city. In our objectives, we've got 6 objectives with a number of tasks underneath. I'm pleased to tell you, hopefully you're pleased as well, that we've already begun progress on most of these without, prior to council adopting this. Our work plan was developed after a retreat in August. It was a day-long retreat where all of our counselors attended. It was a very active and participatory retreat, as I'm sure Councilor Semple would attest to, and Joel would as well. Really, a lot of voices heard. We were really, I think, very representative of the direction and goals of our community. The first objective that we have is to connect with the youth in our community. I'm excited that one of our leads actually brought a number of young people to our meeting this past week who were there. They're participating in a youth advisory council, and they're working with the commission and helping us broaden our mission. So that's one of our first objectives. Objective 2 is to increase community engagement, propose policy recommendations to the council, and inform the community on issues of homelessness and poverty. We're doing that by creating a homelessness working group. There are a number of unhoused individuals, community leaders, and subject matter experts who serve on that. And we've appreciated the participation and support that both the council and city staff have given. I know that Reagan Watchus met with the group a few months ago. This was before the development of this work plan, but they had been an active work group for a while. And we appreciate Reagan's involvement, and we appreciate that the city has dedicated a staffer on the matter of homelessness. Objective 3 is to identify and implement strategies to enhance inclusion of marginalized communities. As Joel referenced, in our last work plan, we created the Marginalized Voices report, which you all received a copy of about 2 months ago. The goal of this objective really is to begin implementing some of the strategies that were identified in that report. We hope to continue working with council on that, and we have an amazing work group that's got a cross-section of folks representing virtually every community in Eugene, and folks who have not typically and historically been involved with the city, who are volunteering to meet at least once a month on a regular basis to participate in this work group, as well as a number of commissioners who serve on it. Our fourth objective is focused around policing hate and bias. As you look through the actions underneath, it's about involving, particularly on the reporting side, and participating in the police chief recruitment. We again appreciate that Jennifer Vanderhagen has been made part of the search team, the group of city staff who are involved. She's been active. She's been really engaged with us as a commission, is letting us know what's going on and providing us opportunities to engage, and we appreciate that the Office of Human Rights and Neighborhood Involvement is really at the forefront of that recruitment. Objective number 5 is to monitor reports of discrimination in our community and promote policies and practices that support immigrants. Like I mentioned, we're already taking some actions on that one. The DACA action the other week was an example of that, and we're continuing to work on that. And finally, one of the ones that we're pretty excited about, actually, and it seems rather boring, but I think is very important to us as a commission, is we just called it administrative. We're wanting to make sure we review our bylaws, that the bylaws really support us being as representative of the community as possible, that it's giving ample opportunities for folks to be involved. We understand that next month, if not later this month, the council will be talking about the roles of boards and commissions. We're eagerly awaiting that discussion, and we actually have a small group of folks who've agreed to get together after that council discussion and talk about how we can make sure that we're as responsive as possible to council's goals and direction, and that we're providing you guys the most valuable return on investment that we can as volunteers to the city. So with that, I'll conclude the formal part of my presentation and offer up the opportunity for any kind of questions or comments the council might have.
Thank you very much. Do I have counselors in the queue? I have Greg. Anybody else? Claire? Anybody else? All right, Greg, take it away.
I want to thank the Human Rights Commission for this report. It's good to see that we're continuing to make substantive progress. I want to focus on the work plan for 2018, and specifically action item 3.5. And maybe you could talk to me a little bit more about what you have planned for this summit of marginalized communities. I assume that is an outgrowth of the report that we were given several weeks ago concerning the feedback of the survey that you did for marginalized communities. And I know that Ken and Bonnie were involved heavily in putting that together, and I want to commend them on that particular report. Chance to read that cover to cover, and kind of want to know, you know, I know this is probably going to be a budget ask, but aside from that, and that's what you have here, including the request for funding from the city. Aside from that, what are your specific goals with regard to what are you looking at as in terms of outcomes for this particular summit? Are you looking at an overall strategy to address some of the issues with regard to how marginalized communities could be more included within the framework of the city, or what other strategies you're looking at to relieve some of the issues and the problems that marginalized communities are currently facing?
Thank you, Councilor Evans, for that question. I have to give you a more general answer than specific, and I apologize for that. But please know I'll follow up to make sure that there's not, if I've missed anything, that you get more detail. You are correct that that specific action item is a result out of the Marginalized Voices report. I believe it was recommendation number 8 of short-term recommendations. The goal of that, and to date, I'm not aware of specific planning efforts on that specific summit, so it may be that we don't have more information to share at this time because that information just does not yet exist. But the goal is to provide an opportunity for marginalized communities to come together, explore common problems, and discuss how they can cooperate with and support one another, and find ways to speak in a common voice and work more effectively with the city. I know that one of the specific things that the anti-discrimination work group, which is the subgroup who is working on this, is they're putting together for International Human Rights Day, which, if I'm remembering correctly, is December 21st, although I'm sure staff will correct me if I'm wrong. And
It is December 10th.
Yeah, that's what
December 10th. I told you, they're good. They're very good.
I just remember that.
Then you're even better, Greg. So one of the things is that they're trying to bring together a bunch of diverse voices and communities and really have it be a multicultural celebration. I don't believe that that alone is meant to substitute for the summit, but to date I haven't heard of any specific planning efforts. So that's a long and short answer.
So you're looking at 2018, December 2018 for that? Is that?
Well, the International Human Rights Day event is December 2017, is what's being planned currently. For 2018, I think that's when you would see a summit come together.
I can speak to that as well. I know that the anti-discrimination work group is currently meeting once a month to discuss moving forward on the recommendations that came out of the Marginalized Voices report. And the intention is in that work that they're doing to bring more information and ideas on how to move forward to the HRC meetings on a monthly basis. And so at this time, I don't think they have solidified when exactly the summit would be. It will not be in this upcoming December, but it will most likely be later in the year. But December 10th will be the International Human Rights Day celebration.
Okay. Claire?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the report. Thanks for the excellent work from all of our members of our Human Rights Commission. You have brought us a number of initiatives this year that I think really made a difference for folks in our community. I just wanted to note, in addition to the many partnerships that you mentioned that's in your work plan and also that you mentioned just now in your report to us, I'm particularly pleased at the added intersection with the Sustainability Commission. I feel like this is the kind of effort that can make both commissions' works even more relevant than they might otherwise be by really leveraging the insights and expertise from both of those groups to come together on I think there's a number of different issues that might fall under both a human rights framework and the social equity framework of the Sustainability Commission. So I think that's a particularly great development that I hadn't heard mentioned in the past that I really want to encourage and congratulate you on. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Alan?
Yeah, I was going to comment on the same thing that Claire commented on. I think that is a very good intersection for two of our boards and commissions, the Sustainability Commission and the Human Rights Commission, especially around Sustainability Commission works off the triple bottom line: economics, environment, and equity. And the Human Rights Commission is all about equity. And so overlapping those two things, I think the Sustainability Commission over years has tried to make forays over to the Human Rights Commission without much success. So I'm wondering if people could talk to that a little bit more. I noticed that in the liaisons, there isn't one explicitly spelled out for the Sustainability Commission on equity issues. Maybe we could add that in there. I know that your objective 2 is very similar to the objective 3 for the Sustainability Commission on housing, and so those two things overlap quite a bit, and it also overlaps with the Housing Policy Board, and so maybe you could talk to the Sustainability Commission and the prospects of getting an official liaison to that.
I'm glad you brought that up, Councilor Zelenka. It's been my dream to get a formal relationship with the Sustainability Commission. We have several with other ones, and the Quebec Overlay Zone was really a test to see if it would work, and it worked really well. So I certainly am interested and willing to pursue that further, so that we can have a formal seat on the Sustainability Commission, and also have a liaison on our commission as well, so that we begin to fuse our commissions together and also be much more responsive when things come up that do have to do with triple bottom line, and have the Human Rights Commission serve as that third leg of the stool that is triple bottom line.
Yeah, right. I know that our bylaws stipulate who's on the commissions, and if you guys feel like it's necessary to come back and have us change the bylaws so you can actually have a seat on the Sustainability Commission, I think that would be interesting to entertain. I know the Planning Commission has a liaison to the Sustainability Commission as well. That person doesn't get to sit at the table because the Sustainability Commission bylaws don't allow for that, and so that might be something we could change, but those two seats might be a good add to the Sustainability Commission as well, and that would be a more formalization of that interfertilization of ideas, because I think it's really important to have that occur.
I agree.
So could you get back to us on that?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Councilor, thank you for that suggestion. You know, we're fortunate that the HRC has a direct seat at the table for the Police Commission, and I believe we have a seat at the table for the CRB as well, if I'm not remembering correctly. As I mentioned with our work plan, we are looking at our bylaws, and so that's something that I'm happy to bring with our work group when we get back together in November to discuss that and see if that's something they think is valuable. The Sustainability Commission does have a liaison who attends our meetings. He was at our meeting last week, and I would suggest that if we were to request a seat at their table, that it would be fair for them to have a seat at ours as well. So that's something that we would definitely be willing to engage in.
Yeah, I'm sure they would be more than willing to do that.
Great, thank you. Jennifer?
Yeah. So I was really glad to see that youth were included in the Marginalized Voices report, and it's really great to see that it's one of your objectives for 2018. But it looks like a lot of the actions are focused on gathering information, which is great. But down in number 3, you mention implementing strategies to enhance inclusion of marginalized communities. And I'm wondering if you're planning on doing anything in 2018 with youth in that, or you're more gathering information this year and maybe that's another step for 2019.
Thank you, Counselor, for that question. It's a very good question as well. You know, when the report came out, I think that you and I and one of the authors of the report dialogued a little bit about the role that youth played in the development of that. And, you know, as we talked about, you know, the report had some young voices in it, but we didn't have youth well represented in that, and that was something we acknowledged we needed to improve. The goal and what I've already seen happening is that the folks who are leading the youth work and the folks who are leading the anti-discrimination work group work are working together closely and really sharing information so that we can be implementing both, you know, we can be doing both gathering information and implementing as quickly as possible. Given the fact that we're a volunteer commission and we have limited time, sometimes we have to, you know, take things in very specific bites. So we're trying as best as possible to share those bites across the apples so that we can take more on than normally we would be able to. So there's definitely a goal of attempting to do both action and research, but on the youth focus specifically, the main goal is to gather information this year and do more with it next, but sharing that across our work groups as much as possible so we can act as quickly as possible.
Okay, great.
And I had a little bit more to add to that as well. We had been looking at involving youth last year, and same thing happened. We blinked and the year was over. But what we are hoping to do is, as Edward mentioned, do a little bit of research, but also hopefully do some action. In conversations with the leads of that specific work group, we have been looking at other models in other cities and ways that they've formalized participation through youth. The 4J School Board has 4 liaisons from each of the high schools that regularly attend their meetings and give a little update and sit in with all their folks. I myself did that in high school, and it really helped me sort of get to a place where I could actively participate. So we're hoping to do something similar to that. Multnomah County has a youth commission as well, right? So that might not be enough feasible in 2018, but certainly for 2019, that could be something that we could implement with your help.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alan wants a second round. Does any other counselors who haven't had a first round? I just wanted to add my own voice to this, that I appreciate the work that this commission has done. I think about this year and the issues that we have confronted and the way the Human Rights Commission has really led the way and sort of created a pathway that council was able to follow in really crucial issues. So I really appreciate the work of the commission in the past year. And I love this work plan and how beautifully structured it is and how clear it is to see what you're going to do. I guess part of my reaction to this is a lot of work.
We cut a lot out.
So, so I sort of recognize how easy it is to say you're going to do one thing and then the year passes and you blink and you miss it, because this is a lot to pick up. One of the things that I find very compelling, again, is to piggyback on that conversation, is the focus on youth, because I think actually citywide, in many things we do, we're not incorporating youth. And so this would be a very good model to see how the Human Rights Commission does that and how well that plays out, because we can learn from that and share that kind of insight and model with other commissions. And very helpful as we have our general conversation about the roles of boards and commissions. So I want to thank you for all of that, for the work you've done, and then for the structure and the way you give us to sort of think about how you're doing that work. So thank you very much. And Alan, you had another comment?
Yeah, I also want to compliment you on the work plan. It's really well done. I like the structure as well, and cutting things out. I've been in groups where you throw up good ideas on the table and then you ask for people to volunteer to work on them, and if nobody volunteers, that one gets dropped off the table. So that's probably what happened here as well. Christy, November 8th is the Boards and Commissions work session, and I think it would be a good idea in prep for that meeting to have some data about what the cross-fertilization is of our boards and commissions, and maybe go ask probably don't have time to ask all the different commissions, but at least the chairs, what they think about which would be the right ones, and then look at our bylaws about that and what we would need to change. And that could be a nice outcome that comes out of that if we want to do that a little bit more.
Okay, we'll work on getting that ready.
Thanks.
Okay, any other comments? Thank you very much for excellent report. Thank you, Edward, for phoning in. And,
A motion we need to make.
oh, we have a motion. That's right, we have to approve this. Thank you for keeping me on track. Okay.
Yeah, thanks for phoning it in, Edward. I am
the king of phoning it in. Thank you all.
I move to approve the Human Rights Commission FY 2018 work plan.
Second.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Mike?
Aye.
8 in favor, none opposed. Thank you very much. And congratulations, we appreciate your good work.
Thank you.
Thank you. And before we slide into our second order of business, I forgot to do the crucial thing in the items. Thank you very much. And while we're getting ready for the next round, we have for the agenda, it's not on your agenda, for our 7:30 meeting, possible vote on the dusk to dawn, which is going to move across the street and be expanded, and that requires a council vote. Did you get a memo on that? Yes? People? And we will, so one proposal is that we could do that also at the 7:30 meeting, unless you feel like you need more time to know about that issue. So I'm just putting that out there. We can, it's not on your agenda, but we could add it to that meeting.
Specifically, Mayor, we're talking about across Highway 99.
Across Highway 99,
The
right.
Lynn Home Center.
And enables that facility to expand by 20.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, comfortable with that being added to your 7:30 meeting? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so we are now ready for the next round.
So the next item is the Sustainability Commission Work Plan item, and I'll turn it over to Chelsea Clinton and the team to lead.
Thanks for having us here today. My name is Chelsea Clinton. I'm the Sustainability Analyst for the City of Eugene, and I staff the Sustainability Commission. The Sustainability Commission is comprised of 13 members, 12 volunteer members from the community, along with Councilor Zelenka. Like the Human Rights Commission, these folks put in a ton of work over the course of the year, so first and foremost, I just want to thank them for all the work they do and for all the effort and thought they put into this community around sustainability. I think without further ado, I'll turn it over to these two. So we have to my left Thomas Price, who's a commissioner, and then Kevin O'Brien, who's the chair of the commission.
Thanks, Chelsea. Good evening, Mayor Venus and city councilors. I just want to thank you for making the time to have us down here to present our work to you. So I've got 4 items for you. I'm going to present our fiscal year 2017 annual report. I've got 2 policy proposals that I'm going to introduce to you, and then I'm going to finish up by introducing our 2018 work plan. And of course, leave it open at the end for questions and comments, and with the hope that we can, you guys can approve our 2018 work plan tonight. So a year ago at this meeting, this council strongly encouraged the Sustainability Commission to think more about the social equity part of the triple bottom line. And we really took that to heart, and I'd like to highlight some examples of how we took your advice this year. So fiscal year 2017, the Commission presented public testimony on several different occasions. We supported the 2016 CRO with amendments. We supported the TSP with amendments. We supported your opposition to the Dakota Access Pipeline, and we asked for more information about how Eugene might divest from U.S. Bank. And all of those issues dealt with social equity in one way or another, but I would say the last 2, the Dakota Pipeline and divesting from U.S. Bank, really social equity was the driving force behind our interest in those issues. We also sent advisory comments to council and staff on 2 different issues, the TSP and the UGB expansion for jobs, schools, and parks. And again, I'd like to highlight that our support of the expansion was driven by the social equity aspect of that issue. So our priorities in our work plan for 2017 were really around climate change and transportation. But we do allow ourselves the flexibility to adjust our work depending on if new emerging issues come up during the year. That happened this year in the spring, and it was around the housing crisis that has developed in Eugene. And we felt, it really bubbled up to the surface, and we felt that we had to act. And so we formed a committee that would look at policy proposals around tiny houses and really trying to figure out ways to encourage the development of tiny homes. And so I'd like to segue into the first policy proposal that I'd like to present tonight, which is about tiny houses. So our recommendation, but you have all this information in your packet. I'm not going to read it to you. I just wanted to highlight some important issues. So our recommendation is that the council, acting through the city manager, direct Eugene's planning department to review current land use codes, development fees, and land use restrictions around tiny houses, and make recommendations that would encourage tiny house development. We also recommend that sustainability principles, specifically tiny homes, are a part of are incorporated into your discussion around the missing middle housing. And lastly, I think this tiny housing issue really exemplifies the nexus of what the triple bottom line is all about, because it really deals with economic prosperity, environmental issues, stewardship, and social equity as well. The next policy proposal I'd like to present has to do with electric vehicles, or EVs. So the commission proposes that the council direct the city manager to work with the Oregon Building Codes Division to adopt a rule for Eugene that says that any new single family housing or duplex construction include the wiring and the circuit breaker to hook up a charging device for an EV, for an electric vehicle. We're not saying the actual charging device, which is like $1,000, be installed, but just the wiring, so that a new owner can come along and more easily get an electric vehicle and put in the charging device. We think this is a very inexpensive way to encourage EV usage, and we think it would more EV usage cuts down on Eugene's greenhouse gas emissions, and it's going to help us meet our CRO goals. So those are 2 proposals. And I'd like to go into our fiscal year 2018 work plan. At our retreat this year, we of course went through our different work plan items that we wanted to work on, but we also spent a lot of time talking about what I'd call the umbrella issues regarding the commission. So basically, how the commission functions and what it's like, how a commissioner serves on the commission. So the reason we did this is we wanted to help figure out a way to use our time more efficiently, help build the capacity of the commission, be more focused and disciplined. We wanted to align how we serve with how our bylaws are written. We want to have people feel like their time on the commission was well spent and had a sense of success. And ultimately want to fulfill our goal of being a trusted advisor to this body. One example of what came out of that work is, what came out of the work was a bunch of procedures and policies that we formalized in writing And one of them had to do with what Council Zelenka is talking about, the liaisoning, whatever the word is, with other commissions. So since I've been on the commission, we've talked about, it's like a good idea to have people show up at other meetings, but it wasn't formal. And as you know, we get busy, and when there's no formality, it just kind of got dropped. It was just a good idea. So now we have a formal person who is picked, who is volunteered for each commission and board, and we have a form that they have to bring back to the commission and present it to the commission once a quarter, basically describing the meetings they went to and what was talked about and how it relates to Sustainability Commission. So the policies and procedures out of that conversation are a work in progress, but we feel like it was a very successful part of the retreat, and we'll continue working on them. So specific policy areas for the Commission in FY 2018 are the following. And I'm just going to highlight a few of them. So the CAP update process. Commission is committed to playing a leading role in the public outreach part of the CAP update. On the TSP implementation plan, we'll participate where possible in the process of prioritizing projects with an eye toward climate and Vision Zero goals. On housing, we're committed to finding ways to address housing needs using the backdrop of the TBL. On Envision Eugene, we're engaging in the River Road Santa Clara planning process. And of course, we're engaging productively on emerging issues. And yeah, I want to open it up now to questions and comments, and hope by the end of the night you will approve our work plan.
Right, thank you very much for that. Do I have?
Can I be in the queue, Mayor?
Yes, in fact, you can be first. And then Chris.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate that. Thank you very much for the wonderful report and the work plan. And I know how much work that you all put in on that, and that's tremendously appreciated. One of the things I was wondering about and didn't see anything on with regard to the recommendations that'll be forthcoming on tiny houses. I'm very interested in that. Is there any part of the work that you'll be doing to measure local demand for those? In other words, it's wonderful for council to consider the option in code and consider what we might do to make that easier for people to have those. But I'm wondering if we will as well be given any kind of information on approximately how many people would like to have one.
Are you asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking about the commission with what they'll be reporting back to council. Will any of that include any kind of measurement of local demand for such a thing?
So the way I'd answer that is the commission doesn't presume to do the work that other people are paid well to do. And we're a volunteer board, and we want to be a trusted advisor, and I mean, if we were given that charge, I guarantee there'd be about 12 out of 13 people standing and saying, yes, please, we'll do anything you want. But we don't really presume to do a bunch of research that we're frankly not really that well qualified to do.
What I would add is that this is Chelsea, that the commission just formed a committee as part of their FY18 work to do some initial research to look into what all the efforts are around housing across the city boards and commissions. We know there's a lot of energy and the commission wants to add value. So I think as part of that effort, commissioners could keep an eye out for information about the demand for tiny housing. I think that analysis that is something that should be done by economists probably or other experts to get a firm evaluation of that issue.
Well, I appreciate that very much, and I would hope if council will be asked to alter code in order to accommodate a demand for such a thing, that we'll have some information about what that demand actually is before knowing the importance of doing so. So that's the part of it that's important for me. other than anecdotal information. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have Chris.
Thank you. This is an extremely important topic. I've been talking about tiny housing for about 4 years now. And I think a good way to talk about tiny housing in the context of the city's structure is to talk about them by their other name, which is accessory dwelling units, or ADUs. Because the state legislature this year in 2017 passed new legislation around ADUs, which requires the city of Eugene to review some of the rules and codes it currently has in order to bring itself into alignment with these new legislation, this new legislation that's come out of Salem, which is encouraging the creation of more ADUs. And one of their arguments, one of the logic here is it's one way to address densification in a way that has less of a perceived impact on neighborhood livability. You're not building big boxes with lots of apartments in them. You're actually dispersing ADUs and living units in a more less intrusive way. And so we have to look at our building codes to see if we are actually now contravening the new state laws that have been passed. Another issue around ADUs is their impact on affordability and workforce housing. I know that right now some of the information I've seen being on the Housing Policy Board is we have an enormous deficit in living accommodations for people who are earning the kind of salary that only allows them to pay about $650 or $700 a month. A lot of apartments, particularly market rate apartments, can be twice that. And so there's plenty of apartments for people who have the money to pay that kind of rent, but there's an enormous shortage for people who don't have it. Some of the accessory dwelling units or tiny housing, for example, Emerald Village is a good example. Those rents are $250, $300 a month, $400 a month. That's well within the affordability range for a huge segment of the population. A third of the population in Eugene is in that level of rent, what they could afford to pay. So I think if you want to talk about demand, if you look at a number of people in the population who could use that kind of housing and don't have access to it, it's an implied demand, but also the number of illegal accessory dwelling units that have been built up until now, and I've toured a few of them. I won't tell you where they are, but there's a number of them that have been built. There is a demand for people who want to build them, and as Mike knows as a marketer, there's the demand that you already know about because you're familiar with the product, but there's also demand that builds when you discover a new product or a new way of doing things. And so you have to kind of figure out or anticipate or some sort of an algorithm to say, if people don't know about the product yet, how can I calculate what their demand will be when they find out? So it's a very interesting subject for me. I want to see a lot of this work. It dovetails perfectly with task force work Housing Policy Board is doing right now. So I welcome the collaboration.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Jennifer?
So thank you guys so much. This is an excellent report. It sounds like you guys are doing a lot of great work, but I was going to, what? Oh, sorry. But I was going to ask about the EV recommendation you guys have. I was really excited when I first read this and it said EV ready because a lot of people in Eugene rent, and if you rent, you can't always be making adjustments to the home you live in, and many of these people may be interested in getting electric vehicles, and having a 240 volt outlet would probably be very nice. I don't have one, so it takes me all night to charge my car, so I can really appreciate how useful this would be, but it sounds like from your report that it won't actually be EV ready. You'd still have to do something. You'd still have to add to it. So this would not help people who are renting. I mean, you'd have to, theoretically.
Well,
I guess my question is you said it costs about $1,000 to put these chargers into homes.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I don't have one. I've heard that, but I could be wrong.
Okay. Well, when last time I checked, we were going to be charged about $500 for my house. So prices could have gone up, but I'm wondering, are there any options that are less expensive? I mean, having the circuits and the breaker is not going to help anyone who doesn't own the home. I'm wondering, is there anything that you guys have looked into that could be done for people who don't own the home, that they could just rent and drive in and plug their car in?
Well, thank you for that question. First of all, it's just for new construction.
Yeah.
Which I guess theoretically could be for a rental, but No, I mean,
Or oftentimes the new construction is bought, not rented.
actually, I assume that, but I have nothing to back that up either. But yeah, this was our solution to basically we're putting in the infrastructure, making it very low cost. We felt like this was low-hanging fruit, and we thought we could start out with baby steps.
Okay, thank you.
The problem is if you were on the Bring tour, there's a new $300,000 house that was built, green, sustainable, generation transfer ready, but it didn't have any of this built in. So it's more money to go after the fact and put this in. And so we're trying to get at least the beginning steps put in.
Step one.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I really appreciate you guys' recommendations, and these are very excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Claire?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, thank you for the report. Thank you for the excellent work. And I also want to appreciate that you've brought forward specific policy suggestions. I think that makes a real difference to have our commissions bring forward tangible policy proposals. So whether or not this body chooses to adopt those proposals, you've at least engendered a discussion, a conversation. Bringing us something specific is so much more effective, I think, in terms of getting our attention and getting us to engage in the conversation rather than something that's more vague and aspirational. Mm-hmm. So I also like both of these recommendations. They're places for us to start and have our own debate and discussion and engage the community in that further. But you've done some of the initial hard thinking about it. What does it mean to be looking at these issues for our community? Here are 2 specific things we think this city could do to address some of these issues. So I really want to appreciate that.
Thank you. So really, Ethan and Chelsea deserve the thank you on that, because this really came out of our retreat. We were struggling in the past to kind of reinvent the wheel every time somebody came to the commission with an idea, whether it was the public in public testimony or whether it was one of the commissioners. And so we spent that time in the retreat to say, okay, here's how we go from an idea to a policy recommendation. So we have specific procedures that have to be passed by the leadership, or they don't come to the commission and they'll never come here. And so that was really because of Ethan and Chelsea cracking the whip on us.
So they give you a process, a framework within which to do your good thinking.
They made us work on it.
Yeah.
They didn't give us. They just were like, we're not leaving this room until you can come up with something.
Forced you.
Yep.
And then to piggyback on the conversation we were having with the Human Rights Commission co-chairs, the liaison work we think is valuable, and we'd encourage you guys to keep pursuing that. And just as we mentioned with the Human Rights Commission, if you think there needs to be some kind of formal action on the part of this, on the part of the council to make those positions more formal relationships that you can then serve, either as a liaison or a serving member, please let us know so that we can look at taking that action.
Yeah, and I would say formalizing it as much as possible so it goes from a good idea to something that people really feel responsible for. And the part we put in was you have to come back quarterly, as I was saying earlier, and now there's a little bit of meat and potatoes behind it. It's not just oh yeah, I was there, but actually you have to fill out something in writing and present it. It just changes everything, in my opinion. You can tell how nervous I am tonight presenting something that I could talk to my wife about all day long.
It's a very different venue here, I'm assuming. So yeah, well, I think that was a great thing that you guys mentioned too. So kind of a measure of accountability for each other as you make a promise, yes, I will attend that meeting, and now I have some expectations around how I do that and what I bring back to the full commission.
Yeah, we'd be happy to share that with all the other commissions if they would like to look at it.
Great.
The boards and commissions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alan?
Yeah, that last part, it's kind of an accountability mechanism. It's not only that you have to go, but you have to actually report about it, and it changes it. I wanted to point out number 5, the build the capacity of the commission as a trusted advisor to the city council. Really kind of what the retreat was about was revitalizing that mission of the Sustainability Commission and taking that to heart. And these 2 policy proposals that have come out are out of that, which is you do the deep dive, you do the thinking, and then you come up with a proposal to at least start the conversation. It might not be the be-all, end-all, it might not just get approved like that, but it's what we think our commission should do. So kind of bubbling those up, given the priorities of what they know about what the cities are. And these 2 things are there, have come out of that. The tiny house one, I guess to answer Mike's question is, I'm sure the committee will put that on their agenda to look at the demand. They're not qualified to do a demand analysis, but it also kind of depends on how you define tiny houses and what the size of them are. There's a new state legislation that was passed that does help do that. But I think we all assume the demand was there because of the affordability housing crisis. If you think of how tiny houses is not just being a little shack, but being anything from there to something bigger than that, then the assumption is because of such a big deficit in the missing middle housing area that there is a demand for that, because there's certainly a demand for more affordable housing. So I think really the crux is around the definition of what tiny houses is. The second one is I'd like to point out is the CAP update process. The Mayor's Ad Hoc Committee on Climate Recovery Ordinance finished its work, and out of that work, and that'll be coming back to the council as well, talks about the Climate and Energy Action Plan and the update that we're going to be doing. Didn't do this, the last one we did was in 2010, so I think it's going to be like a 2-year work plan with a budget associated with it and all the work that needs the community and stakeholder involvements that are in it. So being involved in that is a natural place for the Sustainability Commission to sit and do that work. As well, the Transportation System Plan, working on the Vision Zero goal stuff and the TSB implementation plan, how those 2 help also meet the CRO goals is a great place for the Sustainability Commission to be. And then finally on the EV, maybe Jennifer, another way to think about this proposal is there's kind of 2 parts of the EV. One is the stuff behind the wall, and they'll start that's on the other side of the wall. So the charger may be $500 to $1,000, but if you can't plug it in, it's difficult. If you have an EV, you might have a charger, but it might go from house to house. So what this does is, with new construction, set that infrastructure in place so that it's easy to do that. It's not difficult and complicated, and it's relatively low cost. I mean, we're talking about $150 to have that stuff already in place in your garage so that you could do that, or outside your garage so that it can readily be plugged into a charger. So, and again, it's just new construction, but that's a good place to start.
Right, any other, Betty, go for it.
Did I understand you to say that expanding the UGB contributes to social equity?
No. Yeah, so
Wonder how.
It wasn't you're right, it wasn't the expansion of the UGB, it was the work that we did around the Clear Lake overlay zone.
Right.
More specifically.
I don't understand the relationship, and I would hope that everything you're doing would be related to sustainability, and I don't get it. If you're talking about expanding the UGB, it seems contrary to the goal of sustainability.
Gotcha.
I think the work that he's referring to is when we did the Sustainability Commission did some analysis around the proposed expansion of the UGB. Maybe Alan, you can help me out here, and said, okay, in this area, what are appropriate uses? So they really took an environmental justice lens and said, what types of zoning should be next to, say, housing and that sort of thing. That was the work that they did.
We actually presented this to you last year. It was actually more a prior work group.
So it was the Clear Lake overlay zone was already going to occur. What the Sustainability Commission's contribution to that was looking at it from a social equity perspective and getting things in there that were about what types of manufacturing could go in there and how it would be done, and some of the different rules that were eventually adopted within that proposal did definitely, in my mind, contribute to the social equity of our community. Not that it was about the UGB expansion, it was that we were going to do that anyway. Let's make it as socially equitable as possible.
Well, in my opinion, it couldn't be, but I had a comment too about people taking part in other boards and commissions, what their function. I think if they're going to do that, I think it needs to be clear what the function is. I remember at one time I was on the police commission, and people who were there to represent the Human Rights Commission got upset because they couldn't vote on things. And I think that the function needs to be clear if people are going to attend meetings. Are they just to listen and report, or are they going to be a part of it? And
that's an excellent question.
I think it needs to be clear before you ask someone to do that.
Yeah. So we talked about that, and thank you for that question. And what we came up with is we're really just there in the background. We're not sitting at the table. If something were to come up and somebody would say, hey, Kevin, can you tell us what the Sustainability Commission was working on, blah, blah, blah. We're kind of there for information, but other than that, we're in the back seat, and we're there to report back to the Sustainability Commission what the other boards are doing. Is that your understanding too, Chelsea?
That's the way I see it, as it should be, but I have seen it used another way. Thank you.
Yep. And we were afraid of that.
Claire, you want a second round?
I just wanted to comment on the conversation around the Clear Lake overlay zone and the work that the Sustainability Commission did with that. I believe we received testimony from Lisa Arkin, the executive director of Beyond Toxics, which also was very much involved in the conversation about that overlay zone, looking at limiting the types of industrial uses that might be used in that area because of the historic airshed and air pollution issues out there. And Lisa Arkin's testimony and what she shared with me was that policy work and the specific language that was adopted for our Envision Eugene, she believes is the first of its kind in the state and is a model for other communities to use as they're looking at that same kind of co-location of industrial uses and residential uses, and how you come to a place where you can protect the human beings who are living in that area. So while we may agree or disagree on whether the expansion should have happened, the way in which we've set up that expansion, I think we should be very proud of, and keep in mind what members of our community have told us about that, which is Lisa Arkin's organization is a statewide organization, and they will, as they have capacity, bring that forward to other communities that are also considering UGB expansions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I just want to add my thoughts and my appreciation for this report and for the work you've done, and also for the making of the two very specific recommendations. I am struck, again, this being the second of the commission reports tonight, at the overlapping interests and concerns of our multiple commissions. And I do think it's food for thought for the council as we go into our November 8th session. How many, just thinking about tiny houses, how many different groups are talking about housing and housing affordability and housing types? And as we think about that, I think thinking about how are we going to coordinate that information so people aren't kind of duplicating research, duplicating meetings that are talking about the same thing, and how do we pull that together? So your thoughts on that will be very helpful, and I think we should all bear that in mind as we go forward, that there may be a more efficient way of gathering this information and working on this information, and we might have to think outside our normal structures a little bit to get there. So thank you very much. It's excellent work and good food for thought, and appreciate all that you have done.
In closing, I'd like to thank you for showing up at the workshop that was done about tiny housing. And because of the prior request for stats, we do actually have professionals that have been paid by the city and have done some work in the past on these same issues. I have some of the stats in front of me about single homes and single residents, and we can actually provide more of that. That wasn't the intent of the work that we did. And there are the professionals in our community that were both at that workshop that you attended, as well as in our Sustainability Commission, that has that ability to give you that information if you request it.
Right, thank you for saying that, and I think that's right. We'll discover that we actually have a lot of this information in a lot of different places, and we're not starting from scratch on this. So thank you very much, and I think that brings us to a close for,
You have a motion.
oh, I keep forgetting that's what we have to do. Thank you very much. All right, motion.
I move to approve the Sustainability Commission's FY18 work plan.
Second?
Thank you. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Mike?
Yep.
8 in favor, none opposed. Thank you very much. Oh, we could actually do the consent. Yeah, let's do the consent calendar.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay. Do I have a motion on the?
I move approval of the items on the consent calendar.
Second?
All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Mike?
Aye.
8. All in favor. Thank you very much. And that brings this work session to a close. We'll see you at 7:30.